Welcome to another episode of Learn Informal Education with Gerardo. Today, I have a very special guest, great friend of mine, known him for a while now. He is a fix and flipper here in the Valley. This episode is going to be bringing a lot of value for fix and flippers, real estate agents, but also anybody that's just trying to get into business because even though his industry is a very sexy industry, there's a lot of little industries that makes up his job. So again, this podcast is going to be bringing a lot of value today. Welcome, Edwin Mark. What's up, brother? How are you?
Good, man. Good. Thank you for having me.
Of
Really
course,
excited to
man.
be here.
I appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your day. I know you're a busy man. Every time I text you, I barely get a response. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. No, I get a lot of texts throughout the day, so I try to get back to all of them in a timely manner.
There it
So
is. There it is. Hey, we've known each other for a little bit
we
now.
have, yeah.
It's crazy how we met. We were going to real estate school together to get
Yep,
our
yep,
license.
yep.
And afterwards, we didn't really talk too much. I delayed it and delayed it. You ended up getting your license a whole year before me.
Yep.
And first off, let's talk about that. How old were you when you got your license?
How old was I? I had my license. I was about 23.
Okay, so
Yeah.
23. One thing that kind of stood out to me and why we connected right away was because we both already had rental properties.
Yeah.
And one thing that was super intriguing to me was at 23, you already had a one rental completely paid for.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's talk about obviously, we're going to get into you getting your license, you doing what you do today, things like that. But before that, Edwin growing up, how was Edwin growing up? Was he good in school? Did he get good grades? What was his original goal? Where did you come from? Things like that.
Yeah. I was born in Chicago. My parents are immigrants from Romania. They came here to the United States, obviously, for the American dream and just to give their kids a better life. So grew up there, then moved to Arizona when I was about 4 years old. And I've always just had a mindset and just wanted more. Grew up with my parents struggling a lot of the times financially. So I just knew that when I got to stages of being able to work, which was right around like 13ish, was when I really started kind of entrepreneurship and getting deeper into hustles or businesses, which we can get into that, like kind of
Yeah.
what I did. But
Yeah,
yeah,
go
a,
ahead,
a
touch
lot
on
of a
that.
lot of that was just me just wanting a better life, right? Overall, knowing that hey, when I get to the point of having kids, having a family, I want it to be easier for them because it wasn't easy for me. And my parents did an amazing job. They sacrificed a lot, but yeah, it was rougher growing up. But right around 13, I would say, and this too, because part of why me and you clicked in real estate school was because we both came from like a cell phone background,
Yeah.
right? You were
Yeah,
working
yeah.
at T-Mobile. I was at Sprint at the time, which then got acquired by T-Mobile. But yeah, so basically how I started right at 13, 14, and it's crazy how it transitions into what it is now, but was buying and selling electronics and
Yeah.
phones.
Fix and flipping
Yeah,
phones.
yep, exactly, bro. Would sit there on Craigslist, would just find like the market, right? It's anything you find what they're trading at, get them slightly below, either market them better, take better pictures, or just be more available, whatever it might be, and sell it for 40, $50 more. So that's what I was doing. I was just slowly doing that. And then it got like deeper into that when I was like 16, 17, started actually seeing, hey, this is an income. Whereas before it was just like a little hustle,
Side
trying
hustle.
to make some money, 13, 14.
And you didn't have a job then. That was your job.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
basically like a job. So,
No clock in, clock out.
yeah, I just did that. My dad would drive me to go meet up people in the parking lot, wherever. So yeah, it was good, and it taught me kind of structure, taught me how to save my money. And at the time, living at home with parents, being younger, and coming from parents that are immigrants, like they sacrifice a lot, and they don't expect you as a kid to pay for anything, right? So like
Yeah.
even though I was making money, they didn't ask, "Oh, pay rent or this or pay for food," nothing like that. So I was able to just save up my money, which was really good, and that put me ahead a lot of the times, especially when I got into college and things like that. I had big savings saved up more than the average person would have, just because I grinded. I was
Going
grinding.
in That's right, you went to college, right?
I did, yeah.
Going into college, how much money did you have saved? Estimate.
Going into college, I had about 30,000 saved.
Dude, that's huge.
Yeah,
You're what, 18 years old to have
exactly.
$30,000?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it was just all accumulated between 13, 14, 15, 16, just saving it up, being smart with it, saving it
Did
up,
are your
reinvesting it.
parents savers?
Yes, they are.
So you
They're
learned
big
that from a
savers.
young age.
Young
Because
age.
me, I was the opposite. My
Yeah.
dad had the baddest car all the time. Back then, it was like he had a $700 car payment back then.
Yeah.
That's a lot
Dang.
of dough.
Yeah.
So I always seen that growing up, and I love to see how that generation knowledge and wealth transitions. Because even though your parents, like you said, were immigrants, they sacrificed. They taught you some valuable
Oh,
skills.
100%. Big valuable skills like being very conservative. Don't buy things you can't afford, right? My parents to this day, they don't have car payments. They refuse to. They drive around older cars if needed. Now they're more well off, but yeah, that's how it was, right? They owned their property, they didn't rent. They were firm believers to own a property, right? Pay a mortgage, have a safe place for your family. But yeah, car payments that wasn't in existence. It was that very conservative approach. Hey,
Yeah.
buy what you can afford. Don't put on credit cards. Don't sit there and just run up credit cards and then not pay them. So learn very valuable skills from there,
Yeah, and I
you
think
know?
that also helped too because coming from that background, they never knew when it could get taken away.
Exactly.
So they stored and hoarded it because they don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Exactly.
Like
Yep.
today, I guarantee they probably are like, damn, you're dumb for buying a GTR, for buying a Model Y, for buying this.
Yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, Edwin is a very humble guy. He has a nice fleet.
Yeah.
So again, just coming
Right.
from that background is it's crazy because it also sets you up for what you were meant to do in the future.
Yeah.
Because you say from what I'm seeing is you saved and the only way to keep making more money was any of that little $40 that you made on a phone, you had to reinvest.
Yep.
You couldn't
Exactly.
spend it. So you had to have some delayed gratification. You had to reinvest your profits, which allowed you to have a great savings for college. And now it leads you to where you are today. So Edwin going into college,
Yep.
what did you originally want to do?
Yeah, so originally, man, I come from my whole family history, right? My parents in Romania, they were nurses. When they moved here, my mom worked at a doctor's office, older brother, older sister, all the siblings, medical field background.
Okay.
So initially I was thinking like, okay, like that's where I'm set to go, right? Oh, medical field, recession proof, good income out of college, good 60K a year, like stable, nursing or whatever it might be.
Safe.
And yeah, safe and it would be an industry that's always there, medicine, medical field. We all know
Yeah.
that's
They ain't going nowhere.
ain't going nowhere. Exactly. So yeah, that's what it was I even applied when I graduated from GCU, but I did apply to ASU, different places, and I, nailed it on GCU just because of the scholarship that I got offered. But initially, when I was having those talks to go there, was nursing program, right? Because my
Okay.
plan was to go, hey, let me at least get some type of bachelor's degree in some medical space so that I can meet all my prereqs to go to be a doctor, to go to a higher level. And I would just figure, okay, nursing meets all those prereqs and gives me a fallback that if I don't get accepted into the next grad school, medical school in a year, I have a secure
Nursing
job,
job
a
and still
nursing
making some
job that's
money. And they
not
make good
just,
money.
yeah, exactly. Not just like a bachelor's in biology where you won't make as much or you'd have to go do like some lab work or something. That's all you
Mhm.
can get with that type of degree. I'm sure there's others out there,
That's your mindset going in.
but that was my mindset. So then it was literally a couple weeks before like finalizing everything, going to college. I had a talk with my sister and she's like, I don't know, Edwin. I don't know if medical field's really for you. You got to ask yourself, she's like, what have you done since you were younger? What have you done since you were 13, 14, 15, 16, and throughout high school? Like, she's like, you were buying and selling things. She's like, just go to business. She's like, that's what you were doing. Just go into business. So then I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, that totally makes sense. That can lead into corporate America, like the mindset here was like I had an entrepreneur skill growing up that I never knew about, right? Like I was doing what I was doing. I was 13, 14,
Yeah.
15,
Just came
but like
natural.
nobody told me like, okay, Edwin, like that is focus on that and that'll take you further than focusing on, corporate America or educate like the formal route of education, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Going to
yeah.
get your bachelor's and your master's. So then what I do, decided to switch my undergrad to business management, right? Because I'm like, okay, general business degree, I tap into every field, finance, management, this. And I was like, and I was intrigued by the management role, like leadership, working up the ladder, managing teams, whatever it might be. So then, yeah, so I went for that. And then in that first year, I really enjoyed finance and economics classes. Like I was dialed in on those. I knew them. I didn't really have to study much or at all really for the test. I would just go to school, pay attention, and do really well in the test. So then I decided, okay, let me then do a minor in finance and economics and just hone in more on those classes. And that's what I did. So then I ended up graduating a 4-year degree in 3 years with a 4.0 GPA. So that's another thing is even high school, I did really well. Like I'm
Okay.
really good book smart wise, just because for me, it was just like I had to get things done, right? Like a lot of the times I had friends in high school or wherever, and they're like, "Oh, I just crumble up the paper, throw it in the backpack, and oh, I forgot to do my homework." That wouldn't be me, right? Like I was a hard worker. I would necessarily wasn't like the smartest, but I just always got my stuff done, which
Yeah.
led into good grades and things like that. So then, yeah, I graduated in 3 years with a bachelor's in business management, and at that time, I was still working, for the telecommunications, doing sales, right, retail, and then after I graduated, my plan was to go into a wealth management company or work in like that field. But then I got offered a good position, like a promotion at where I was currently at. That was like running my numbers, right? I was like, I can make this here, or I can go do banking or wealth management or whatever that
Start
field
back
is,
from the bottom
and
to
then
work
kind
my way
of
up.
make 20K less a year. And I was like, I'll stick here. So then I stuck it out. And in that time, right, like
You're still living with your parents all at this time,
yeah,
right?
all at this time
Okay,
I was living
that's huge.
that was huge, exactly, yeah, and I was grateful for them to, right, not be like a lot of parents out there that force the kid out at 18, 19, 20, and that's a hard life for those kids that are forced and, "Hey, you gotta move out the house, you're an adult now." That's tough because you barely have a job that's probably barely making you anything, you're now needing to move in, probably rent, or even if you room in with some roommates or whatever it might be, like, it's tough. So I was grateful for that. I lived at home, had it the whole kind of everything. So it just allowed me to focus on working and things like that. So at the time, but I didn't allow that to like not make have me save up money or kind of living like most people probably would have. Oh, just splurging their money because they don't have responsibilities or they
And
don't
that's
have
a key
overhead
point.
or
Yeah,
anything like
yeah.
that. Like I treated myself as if I did have overhead. I didn't spend my money. I was making good money as where I was at while still doing, some side hustles and investments, stocks, this, that. Like
Playing
explored
around with it, see what's
all
out there.
entrepreneur little hustles and fields while still working that 9 to 5. And then I really this is when I really dialed into like real estate was I really saw I'm like, man, I'm getting burnt out at my job. I was like, I need to start putting some of this money to like work, right? Like where can I put this money that I have saved up?
How
I'm
much did you
fine.
have when that light bulb clicked? Or like when you start getting burnt up? Because I mean, you had 30 going in. Sounds like you got a good scholarship, so you didn't have to
Yeah.
spend much of it.
Yep. Yep.
So when that light bulb clicked for you and was like, okay, this corporate life, it's making me good money, but it's getting me burnt out and it's not fulfilling me.
Yeah.
What was your next thoughts? Yes, you wanted to go into real estate. What did that consist of? You getting your license, you buying a house, you doing what exactly?
Yeah, so that's I was like on my second year working there and I was like, man, I'm over this. Like I want to leave. And at the time, right, like I could have either left with a chunk of money that I had saved up and just been comfortable and just got full time in real estate and just made it happen, saw which way right. Or I remember this because I had a conversation with my dad and we were talking and he gave me like a plan too. He's like, why don't you just take the money you have saved up, get a couple loans and just buy rentals like before you leave corporate America and before you're not as financeable because W-2 income, as most people know, that's easy to get loans.
Yeah.
So
So your dad put this into your
yeah,
mind.
so he helped me with that like decision because I was over it, man. I like didn't want to, but then I was like, you know what? He has a point. So then what did I do? I hopped right in, got my loan approval, and bought. And from there, within a year, I was just rinse and repeating. When you buy properties, right? Like you can go in, your finance, your debt to income ratio. I was buying one property, right? And then after I was buying that property, I was leasing that property, right?
So you're
And
putting 20% down on these properties and buying them
correct.
right away.
Yep. Buying them right
What year was
away.
this?
This was end of 2019,
Okay.
2020. So it was a good time. Looking at it now,
Mm,
it's a good
of
time. But at the
course.
time, nobody thought it was a good time because that was when prices were starting to skyrocket. They were popping off. Rates were also low too. So yeah, so then that's what I did. I just rinse and repeated. I bought a property, rented out, showed a lease to the lender and said, "Hey, like here, I have this property rented out. Approve me again. Okay, here you go.
Yeah,
Boom.
and
Here's
you're
another
putting 20%
pre-approval.
down, so it's not
Exactly.
like you're just trying to get in these houses with 5% or
Nope.
nothing,
Nope. Exactly.
or
They
at
were
least sub
20.
2 guys
Yep. They were
or
20 to
stuff like that.
25% down. I didn't know
Anything better.
much about real estate at that time. I just knew buy rentals. I didn't know creative financing. I didn't know any of those things existed. You know what I mean? I was buying them just the traditional route, 20, 25% down, avoid the PMI, get into the house. It's a mindset,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That
yeah.
my parents instilled to us. It was like, hey, save up your money, make your payments the less. So that's what I was doing. And within that last year, before I pulled the trigger and finally left, I had bought 4 rental properties,
Okay.
all
20, 25% down.
all 20, 25% down, 3.5% rates, give or take. Some of them probably,
You
I
still
think,
have those today?
still have those today.
You're lucky,
I
man.
know.
I fucking sold my first 2,
I
man,
know you did, bro. I know
and
you did.
I
Yep, the
regret
ones in
that.
surprise, bro.
Though I regret that so bad, bro.
I'm telling you,
So,
dude,
so
to this
bad.
day, I would never sell those properties because
They
I see
spit you off
more
crazy
value.
cash
Well, I
flow.
just see more value in that debt I have on that property than the actual property itself. And when you
Yeah,
know real estate and assets, you understand that
yeah.
that is more of a asset to some extent. That note at that 30-year fix, that's a hedge against inflation for 30 years. Think about that.
Oh, I know. I know now.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, then let's speed this up. So now you buy these rentals.
Yep.
You got 4 rentals before you leave corporate America. You did the same route that I did. I had
Yeah.
these rentals, and before I left my job, I realized, hey, I was living for free in my house hack.
Mhm.
My rentals were spitting on me off enough cash flow to pay for my expenses because I didn't have any crazy expenses. My car was paid off, no credit cards, nothing like that, which is still a key point to hit on because you're doing all this with very low expenses, which
Yep.
allowed you to do this.
It did. Yeah.
Now, your goal is, or not your goal, we'll put you back into where we are. You quit your job. You got the 4 rentals. You're now going to go into real estate full time.
Correct. Yeah.
You get your license. That's where we meet. What was your thought process there when you got your license? Did you think, "Hey, I'm going to go be a top sales agent?" Or what did you like what was your initial like goal of getting a
Yeah.
license?
So my initial goal of getting a license was doing kind of what Lenny did. And shout out Lenny. He helped me out a lot. Big mentor of mine. Was to
How'd
just
you know
doing
Lenny?
he was my realtor. He was my realtor when I
No
was buying
way.
my
That's how you
rentals.
met him.
Yeah. Yeah. He was
Oh,
my
okay.
realtor buying my rentals. And throughout that time got to know him and told him, like, dude, I want to do what you're doing. Like, you're making, good money, you have a good life. I want to do that. And I'm a real estate agent and I fix it. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do that. So that's what my goal was to have both
So
businesses, have
you
a
knew
good
going in that's what you were gonna do.
yeah, yeah, I knew
Oh, so you
going
never thought I'm gonna be a traditional agent.
I want and I'm still a traditional agent and that's still a big part of my business, but no, that wasn't my initial just go in with just that being
Okay.
a traditional. I knew if I was just a traditional, that's plentiful income and I'll do well with that. But I love investing. I like that's what I'm dialed in on. I've under like my underwriting's really good. Like I've learned a lot. So yeah, I knew like I was like, I want to get into fix and flipping. I knew it was lucrative, right? I knew there was potential to make life-changing money. So, yeah, so going in, got licensed, quit, and at the time I was licensed for 2 months and then quit because I was just getting busy. Like I got a client as soon as I was licensed, it's just like business started pouring my way. It was amazing. And then locked up my first flip and my
How'd you
first
get it? Let's talk about your first deal.
so my first deal was a property actually that Lenny had under contract, and he was just like, "Hey, I know you want to get into flipping. I have this one under contract. Like, I was gonna do it, but I have a couple projects already going right now, so I could, if you want it, I'll assign it to you." So that's what he did. So he assigned it to me.
Did he
For
make a
like,
fee?
I mean, like 12 grand on it, 12 grand.
Wow.
Which now looking at it, it's pretty aggressive to make 12 grand
12
on a deal.
grand for your fucking first deal
I
and
mean,
hey man, here's your first
yeah,
flip.
go do well on it. Hope you do good.
Hope you do
Here's a
good.
12 pop on it. Whatever. No, but I did well on it. So there was plenty of margin on that deal. But at the time, right, like it
And you
was
trusted him.
yeah, yeah. And I trusted him. I'm like, okay, if this guy's gonna tell me this is a good buy, he guided me. He was like, hey, you're gonna put about 25-ish, 30 grand into this property. You got to do this and this. Here you go, execute it. So that's what I did. So I locked that one up, executed it. He helped with some
Do you remember
contractors.
your numbers?
I do remember my
Okay.
numbers.
Let's hear
Yeah.
your numbers on your first deal. And what type of property was it? Condos?
Single family. Yeah, it
Okay.
was a single family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I believe, if I remember correctly, I think it was like 1,400 square feet.
Okay.
Anyways, what I really remember on the deal, because I these are probably rough numbers,
Yeah, I
but I
don't
think I
care
bought
about
it for 220, put about 30-ish into it or so, and
okay,
then
about
ended up selling
250-ish.
it for 340, 350. All I know, dude, is I remember getting that check and just closing on that deal, and I'm like, "Yo, I used to make this in 1 year working at my job." It's
What
like
was your profit on that?
60 some thousand.
Oh my
You know what I
gosh.
mean? So,
On your first flip.
on my first flip. Yeah, but see, this is also the market was just popping off.
Yeah, it was
Like, I
crazy
ended
then.
up selling it like 20 grand above list price just because, so I was like just an extra cherry on top, but
Either
popping
way,
off. It
you were
was
still
good.
there
So
about
it
your
was
first flip.
definitely a good start, good booster, good morale booster to just say, dude, this is doable. This is amazing. And they're not all gonna be like this, but this I proved the model. I took
You
a
got that
risk.
proof of concept now.
Exactly, exactly, and learned a lot about construction throughout that process on the first one, because on the first couple ones, you're always more hands-on, like, you're there every single day at the project, you're, making sure every little thing gets done, you don't quite trust the guys at this time because 'cause you've never worked with them, things like that, so it's all new to you. But yeah, dude, and then from there was just kept going at it, kept just rinse and repeating, and it was slow, it wasn't
How
at a
many deals?
time.
Maybe like a year when you're first starting it.
First
Maybe
started, I think 3 or 4 the first
okay,
year, but I
3 or
was
4.
like it was
About 1
more.
a quarter.
Yeah, it was, but it was not a full year. It was about like 7, 8 months. So I did like 3 or 4 of them,
Okay,
and then, yeah, the following year, this is probably ballpark, I think I hit, like, right around 10-ish.
okay. So how long you been doing it now?
I started in, it was like 2021,
2021.
or, like, end of 2020 to going into 2021
Okay, so
is
one,
really
2,
is
3. It's 2024 now.
yeah.
So you've been doing it for about 3 years.
Yeah, about 3 years. Yeah,
Okay,
it's about,
and
I go based on, like, how, like, long I've had my real estate license, because I
okay.
started flipping shortly after I got, like, licensed, and I got licensed February of 21. So now that I think about it, it was more like middle of
Yeah,
21 that
because
I
I got
started.
mine in March of 2022, my license.
Yeah, yep,
Literally a
I got it
year after
I got it
yours.
February of 21, February 25th, 2021, I remember, and I started flipping, like, right after that. I
Okay,
think
cool,
June
cool.
and July is when I got, like, my first one. My first flip,
And let's
the
tell
one on
people
Villa
where you
Maria.
are at today. I just asked you before the show,
Yep.
how many flips do you have going on currently?
Currently, right now, all at different stages, right? A couple of them under construction, couple of them finished, some of them under contract to be sold. Um, I just counted when you told me, because I said around 10, it's 11.
11
11,
flips at one time.
correct.
And since you started, I know you've only had a little bit. You said your first check was what you would make in a whole year.
Yeah.
What is, and you don't have to say the number, what is your biggest year so far that you've been flipping?
Um,
You could give a ballpark. I could say a number. You could say higher. You could say lower. How do you want to do it?
let's do it like that.
Okay, 400,000.
First year of flipping?
All year, all experience now. What was your best year?
Oh, best year. Okay. Over.
600.
Over.
Okay, so that just goes to show you right there, bro, that, and this is something that I learned from you that I'm still trying to learn because it's very hard for me because I
Yeah.
have this shiny object syndrome, and I do.
Yeah.
That if you hone in and focus on one thing, one avenue, you learn to perfect it. You learn to just learn every single step and any problems and anything that goes on with it, and you just perfect it.
Yep.
And you just keep going. And you keep learning along as you go as well. But it allows you to get that system and process because now I'd imagine you're using the same guys for every project.
Yep.
You're maybe I know some flippers that use the same material, so that way on the next one, if they have left over, they could put it in
Yeah.
there. That type deal.
Yeah, you have to, dude. When you're running a business where you're doing 3, 4, 5 under construction at one time, you don't have the mental capacity to go there and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna change the flooring on this one. I'm gonna buy this amount of flooring." It's like, hey, run a theme that works, that sells, that's modern, and just run it.
Got it.
Couple tweaks might need to be done, like, oh, okay, this house a little bit in a nicer area, so throw like maybe some little bit of an more expensive chandelier that hangs down.
Okay.
Yeah, little things like little
Okay.
fixtures, but the main
Big
stuff, the
items,
cabinets,
same.
the countertops, the tiles, the showers, the way I run them, the LVP, the flooring, it's all this.
Okay.
I
And
like
that's
it.
good.
And
That's
sometimes
good.
it'll change, right? Sometimes it's like I just recently changed my showers. I go with a different tile now, but I've been running it for the last 3 projects, right? Whereas before I ran that tile for a lot of projects where it's so you'll change a couple things as you go and you start seeing trends change and what people like. Now I don't really do the white marble tiles on my showers, whereas just literally 6 months ago I was running those. Do more of a contemporary, modern, concrete look where
Okay.
it's just that's what people like, right? Just
Yeah.
that sleek, super clean, modern look, you
Okay.
know? So yeah, it changes, but it's nice. It's good to experiment with different things sometimes, but with the business I run now, it's not. It's just hey, get in there, get the crews in there, get them turned, do them
You have
right,
all your
and sell them.
systems. You have
All the
all your
systems.
systems in
Yep.
place. And I want to talk about this too. So now that you're making so much being your own client, are you still doing traditional real estate?
Yeah, dude, and I love traditional real estate just because that will always be there.
Are
I
most of your clients like investors themselves that flip,
yes, yep.
or are they just normal people that are trying to buy a house to live in?
Yeah, so let's
Do percentage maybe
last
of what your
year
clients are.
I had a good amount of traditional clients.
Okay.
I looked back at 23 and I'm like, "Dang, dude." I was like, "I did have a good amount of clients." Like buyers, first time buyers, or maybe repeat clients, but right, traditional buyers, not
Traditional deals.
investors, just the guys who are buying one property maybe every couple years or whatever. I was like, dang, that was good. This year, I was like, man, I wasn't expecting it to be like that busy traditional wise, but it blew up. I have a client in Peoria under contract, first time home buyer, sphere of influence. Again, another client over in Peoria under contract. Our inspection is tomorrow on that one. So that one's
So you're
cruising
still
along.
busy for traditional
Busy
side.
for traditional, dude, and then traditionally, I noticed I've have a lot of listings now. Like, I help a couple of flippers in the valley that have me underwrite their deals before they either pull the trigger. A lot of their confidence is in me. Like, they won't pull the trigger unless I, like, tell them, like, "Yeah, it's a good deal," and I would do it. And if I tell them 'em I'll do it, they'll pull the
They'll
trigger.
buy it,
They'll buy
and
it.
then in return for your value, they'll have you list it.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'll guide them. I give them
And
subs. I'll
that's
help them
huge
out.
though,
Oh, huge.
because for somebody that's wanting to get into a
Yep.
flip, yeah, just like any industry, if you can have somebody that's already doing what you want to do, and let's say what I love about that is rather than them paying you 20,000 to get your advice, they're paying you from
The commission, it's you're still getting a service.
so you're giving
I'm
them their
yep,
value. If anything, especially with everything that's happening in today's NAR world and things like that, your business will continue to stay relevant because that's your value. You're
exactly.
providing them value. And every realtor, anybody in any industry, there's always going to be competition. But if your value means much more to somebody else, you will stay in business.
Easily.
Because if you have a real estate agent that's just a normal real estate agent that wants to help a normal flipper, or maybe somebody that's trying to get into it, I got a deal from somebody that called me and said they had a bad agent, had them buy a deal for a flip. They bought it about 50K over
Wow.
what they should have. The market turned very quickly as we went to list their house. They lost $40,000 on that deal.
Yep.
But that was a traditional agent, normal, and no disrespect to them, but that's just not their lane.
They're not their lane. Yeah.
So
They don't understand the construction cost or what even that they don't understand a lot of the back end stuff with the
exactly,
numbers and holding costs and this and that and how to work in those numbers to create that cushion a lot of the
exactly.
time.
Congratulations, brother, for doing where you are today for the traditional side, your flipping, fix and flip business. Now let's get down to some questions and the part of the show that I think is going to bring a lot of value to a lot of people
Mhm.
because a fix and flipper, bro, we got fix what is it? Flip or flop on
Yeah,
TV.
yeah.
We got Tarek on TV. We got all your job is sexy, bro.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be a fix and
Oh,
flipper,
dude,
bro.
I know.
Everybody wants to be a fix and flipper.
I know. I get
So,
that a lot. Like people ask me, "Oh, what do you do?" I flip properties. "Oh, I want to do that." Or, "Oh, this." Like
yeah,
even an agent the other day that I'm on a country, I want to do what you're doing. She's like things like so. Yeah, you're right. It's sexy, right? People think it's all just that.
fun and games and
Yeah,
that and even today, you're saying you got 10 or 11 flips going at one time. Everyone's saying the market is bad.
yeah.
So, say all of this to ask, we'll start with somebody that's getting in on their first deal, and then we'll go from there. So, speaking to somebody and everybody that says, "Oh, I want to do that," or whatever the case may be, as a first time flipper or somebody that's maybe done one on accident, they bought it, did a little bit of work, and happened to sell it and made some money.
Yeah.
For those people and they're wanting to do it more or do it full time or get into it, A, what's your advice? B, where are you finding these deals and how can they find the deals? And C, how the biggest question, especially you from your point of view on how you got your first deal and how somebody can get it today, is how to get it financed
Okay.
and how to take down the deal. So go
Yep.
ahead and start from there.
So I would say, yeah, first thing like flipping, right? I to combine into three different things. Like I'd say you got to be an agent, you got to be a contractor, you got to be an investor, all in one. I would say to really understand. And no one's saying, okay, you have to be an agent. What I mean is you have to have that
That
know
mindset.
how of the market.
Okay.
That's what I mean. You
Know
have
what the
to
market's
know
doing.
what the market's doing. You know what I mean? Contractor. What I mean is you got to know basics of construction, right? You got to know pricings for certain things, getting bids for certain stuff, whether it's a fair price, it's not a fair price, quality of work. You have to have an eye for certain things, and then investment, right? You have to understand the underwriting, right? What that property, like what it's worth paying for it, what you're going to need to be into it, working your numbers, and seeing what you can sell it for. So those all three, I would say, you got to have all those three different knowledges combined. I would say a lot of the time for a first time person to really get into it, I would say first buy something you're familiar with. In a side of town where you know, right? Or
Okay.
it's even the neighborhood you live in and the house is like what they're trading at. And you saw, okay, my neighbor here, Joe, just sold his house for this amount. If an opportunity pops up in that neighborhood or zip code, you tend to know it a lot more because if you're living in there, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big step is buying your backyard where, and then I would say in this market too, this is a super conservative approach, but I would say buy something that you're willing to weather and keep if needed. Especially as a first time flipper, you don't want to have your only exit be selling it, right? Because if you end up not being able to sell it, or if you end up having to take 20, 30, 40K loss to sell it because you get caught up, have it be a property that you're also okay that, hey, if I need to weather this and keep it for the time being and convert it into a rental so I don't lose crap ton of money right now when to sell it off, do that. So
Okay.
buy if you're thing, for instance, in the beginning, I probably wouldn't have bought a property super down south because I wouldn't wanted to keep a property that right now I'll buy them down south because I know I can sell them and I know my numbers. And if I need to take a loss to sell it, it's not detrimental.
Okay.
But as a first time flipper who just saved up just X amount, just enough to do a flip, you want to be cautious. And then sources to find them. You can connect with certain agents that know what they're doing. There's plenty of them out there. I'm one of them. There's plenty of my buddies, Nick, Luis, they all do the same thing. They're all investor agents. So connecting with an investor agent who has your best interest, who will source you a deal, understands what it takes, has worked with flippers or done flips themselves, and understand underwriting and the whole systems of what it takes.
Yeah.
And they'll also probably source you a deal too. If not, then you can definitely get connected with a bunch of wholesalers. Spencer with Gentry, they're a big one. That's like the main list that a lot of people are on. They just blast a lot of deals. And then there's a lot of small pocket wholesalers. But a lot of those guys will only send you deals if you've done deals with them and they know because they just have their like tight niche of
Yeah.
buyers, you
Because
know?
they want to sell them and
Yeah,
they
they
know that
want to
those
sell it.
buyers are going to buy,
Exactly. You
not
know,
wasting their time.
exactly. They'll know they'll lock it up. They don't worry about blasting it and getting tire kickers and all that stuff.
And then finance. Let's talk about
Financing.
that because, like, your
Yeah.
first deal, how'd you finance it? Or did you
First,
pay for it cash? How did it
yeah, no,
work?
first deal I financed was private lending. It was
Okay.
actually my older brother. He's pretty successful, pretty liquid. He's a pharmacist and then owns a care home. So he does pretty well for himself. And he's, again, like me, super conservative, just save up all our money.
Yeah.
So he was liquid, right? And I was just like, hey, let's do this. We made it work and he trusted the process. So he's still my private lender to this day for a couple deals. And then now I'm at a point too where I'm doing a lot of them that, I do hard money on a couple of
You
them.
have to do.
So, and again, hard money is just like in my eyes, hard money. I know it has a scary thing. It's very similar to private lending. At the end of the day, you're borrowing money from someone and you have to owe them back. That's
Yeah.
plain and simple. You know what I mean?
Sounds scarier,
Sounds
though.
scarier than what it is. And don't get me wrong, it's a lot to weather, right? The high rates, 12%, 13% is what a lot of hard money guys want. But you have to think, right? Like when you look at, oh man, I'm paying $3,000 a month in hard money payments for this property. It's yeah, okay, work those in your deal, right? Work that 2, 3 month holding or that 4 month holding in your deal. And if the numbers make sense, hold it. You know what I mean? So that's how I am. So a couple of them
Okay.
hard money and then private lending, but plenty of hard money lenders out there, dude, like 15, 20%. Some of them will even do 10%. Cap Fund one is a huge one. That's like kind of the to go for a lot of these newer flippers. They do a lot of
Yeah.
sponsorship. They're even at your event too, like
Mhm.
the Airbnb. So yeah, they're a to go. And then there's again smaller, tight niche one. I keep getting calls from this one, Kiavi. They'll cold call me a lot, so maybe I'll use them.
Okay.
But so
No,
there's that.
that's good to know because I think everyone has to, and I think this is something that you really hit on, is you just seen something and you went and tried it.
Yeah,
And everyone keeps thinking, "Hey, I wanna do this," or whether it's fix and flip, whether it's starting up their own, I don't know, cosmetology line, whatever it is. They keep thinking, "I wanna do this, I wanna do this, I wanna do this," and they feel like they have to know everything. And you didn't know everything from the start. You had great mentors, but you also learned as you went. And
yeah.
I'd imagine that first deal looks, yeah, the number was great, but the system was probably a lot not as dialed in as it is today.
Nowhere close. Nowhere
And that's
close.
what allows you to now do 5 to 7 to 10 at one time because now
Exactly.
you're going and going. And I also want to hit on, especially for these people that are trying to get into flips,
Yeah.
they think, and you tell me if this is good or bad since your experience, they think they could do 1 or 2 flips a year and they'll be good. And from the way I've seen it, flippers that are making really good money, they have to keep doing more and more at one time.
Yep.
And is it something that can be a side hustle, or do you suggest maybe doing it either full time or not at all?
Yeah. See, that's that. So
Because I think a lot of people are like, "Hey, I have 100,000 on the side. I would love to do a flip, but I don't really want to do it full time. I
yeah.
just want to do it where it's like, hey, we'll do one. If it made me $20,000, cool. They'll go to the next. They'll
Yeah.
do it one time.
That's ultimately what I would recommend.
Oh, doing it on the side.
Yeah, doing it
Okay.
on the side to start off full time wise, man. It gets like full time flipping. It
Mhm.
becomes a lot, right? Because it's a whole different ball game. It's no longer just cherry pick deals. It's hey, let me buy this deal because it's presented. There's decent margin on it, and it'll keep my crew busy. Because it's not just my mouth to feed. It's a full time crew
Mm.
that relies
So
solely
you
on your
guys
work.
paying these? Are you? Do you have these guys like on a salary, or they're
So
still like
so
1099,
they're all
or
1099,
okay?
but there are subs that only work
Rely
for
on you.
you or like my painter, for instance. Like he'll paint other houses sometimes, but majority of his work comes from me. My handyman, they're on day rate, so they're on like hourly wages, 1099. So you have to keep these guys busy, and you don't have
Otherwise, they're gonna say fuck you.
that. They'll find work elsewhere, or they're relying on you, dude. Like you're their hunter going out hunting deals, and you need to go out there,
Keep them
hunt,
busy.
and keep the whole crew fed. And that's what it is. So it's no longer like
I didn't
cherry
think about
picking
that.
deals. Like there's deals I pulled the trigger on recently that my margins are nowhere close to what I want to hit. I'm just telling myself, hey, I make money from it. I didn't lose money from it. Yeah, I didn't hit my threshold, or hit probably half of that, but they made their money. They fed their families. They got work, right? So it's no longer solely just let me just rip it on every deal. It's
Okay.
let me do these deals so I can keep my pipeline full so that these guys have this project to work on, this project to work on, this project to work on. And I'm not sitting there like with no work for these guys. Cause if they're
Okay.
not working, they're not earning.
That
Right.
makes sense.
So that's what it is. Whereas like looking back, I'm just like, man, it just all fell in my lap to do this. But I was like, side hustle wise, a lot less stress, dude. Like, and I'm at a point now where it's like
And
the
you could
business
probably
is
have a
well,
higher threshold. So,
exactly.
cause like right now, and speaking of that, for a side hustle person,
Yeah.
what should their threshold be to truly be a side hustle? Should it be a certain number? Should it be a certain percentage? Because I'd imagine, like you were saying, sorry to cut you off, but you're at a point now where you're like, I got to get a deal. Otherwise, my
Yeah.
guys aren't going to be busy.
Yeah, otherwise the guys aren't going to be busy. And don't get me wrong, you get to a point where deals are naturally coming in your lap that make sense, that are always going to make sense. But occasionally you find yourself buying one and then you look at it and you made a decision a little too quick and you're like, oh, the numbers are a little tighter. Or there's even deals, bro, where I've bought and I've like locked the property up, committed to it, had EMD in. And these are mainly like the direct to seller one. Like it was mainly one a couple months ago, but it was an old dude. And I'm like, I'm not going to walk away from this old dude. And I was like, I could have walked away from the EMD. It wouldn't have really affected me. But I'm like, he wants his house sold and I committed to buying it. But after I got in there, I'm just like, Can't keep those cabinets, got to tear those out. And before you know it, the reno increased by 15 grand, 20 grand, and there's all that profit that was initially left. And you're just like, dang it. But I stuck to it. But I knew that when I walked that property after I locked it up, I was like, this is not gonna be profitable, but it's gonna be work for the guys, and I'll still get out from it, and I'll still make something, not anywhere close to what it should be versus like the risk and stuff that you're putting out. But whatever, it is what it is. I hold my word and move on. And whereas like when you're doing it as like a hustle on the side, like you want deep buys, you want to know that hey, I'm gonna walk away with 30, 40 grand profit on this deal because you're not doing volume, right? You're doing two or three of them and you want to be stable. And then plus your construction, if you're not doing it full time and you don't have the pipeline, unless you're doing a lot of it yourself
You're
or
gonna be paying higher.
you're going to pay higher because you're not keeping these guys as busy. Therefore, their prices aren't going to be as attractive to some guy who's like giving me 30 houses a year to, fully texture and drywall and stuff versus a guy who's just calling me on like a one off job. And I don't know if he'll
Yeah.
call me again.
And
So
that's how yours is right now. Your crews, don't get me wrong, they're busy. You still pay them a great amount of money, but they're able to give you a certain price that they wouldn't give anybody else
correct.
because you keep them fed and you keep them busy.
Yep, exactly. They
Okay.
know that they will have work there. And they don't get me wrong, it's all still fair pricing. There's still some things I'm like, man, I wish I can get that cheaper. But again, it is one of those things where it's like it's become a business, so it needs to be pipeline full. Whereas if you do it as a hustle, it's like, hey, pick some deals, get one. And I have clients like that. I have investor clients, and he's like, I want to do two or three of them. He owns a flooring company, so he's focused on that. And then on the side, he wants to just pop off a couple flips a year. So that's his
And it
goal.
could be good because if your profit is, you're saying your threshold is 30 to 50 as a
Yeah,
side hustle. If you do one or two, you made up somebody's full year worth of income
exactly. On the side.
and while you're still going, like you said, not as stressed,
Mhm.
keep going. I think this is something that we could talk about for realtors.
Yeah.
You're in the game, you're able to save some money on commissions anyway. So why not do 1 to 2 flips a year?
Yeah, I agree, dude. I think there's a lot of realtors out there that are not as educated as they should be. I think as a realtor, you have to fill up your tool belt. Like the more things you have on you, the more better you can
Value you can
service your
bring.
client.
Yeah.
Like when I walk into a situation, like I can go in, I can say, hey, I can list your property. Hey, I can do a creative deal on your property. Hey, I can flip your property. Hey, I can. There's so many
Buy
different
it
options,
cash
every
or
single
whatever.
outlet
Yeah.
because I've done every single
Multiple
area. Yeah,
exit
multiple
strategies
exits.
where there's this one realtor that just comes in and says, yeah, we could list it for this much.
Yeah, we can list it for this much. This is what you're going to get. This, that, that. Yeah, all those things. So I think that would be helpful for some realtors to expand out there and reach more out to the investment world. And I do know that there's a lot of realtors that when they do tap into the investment world and start seeing, man, like you can either double dip on commissions, right? Find a realtor, like a flipper, a deal on the front end, represent them, make your commission, and then they'll give you that listing. Like most flippers, if you're an agent and you're out there hustling, finding them deals, dude, they don't care. They'll give you that listing. Yeah, it'll probably be reduced commission, but still, it's volume for your name. You get your numbers up, right? You get your transactions up. You start
Yeah.
to see more, which is also leading into what I think makes certain agents better is I'm seeing a listing, whether it's my flip or one of my clients' flips, I'm seeing a listing at least every other week. I'm popping up a house on MLS. So you can only imagine the amount of like when markets shift, I can see it right away. My showing schedules are going down. There's not as many buyers showing these properties. They're died down. Oh, I listed this property. It's not as hyped as when I listed that other property 2, 3 months ago. So you can
Around the
start,
same
yeah,
neighborhood
around the
or
same
whatever.
neighborhood. It's not getting as much activity. So you start to see it because you're in the trenches, listings, and you're able to really see what's going on. So yeah, I think if realtors, a lot of them, I think if they dial in on the investment side and find flippers to work with, I think it can open up their book of business big time. I mean,
Yeah.
and yeah, there's a handful of amazing agents that I've worked with that still send me deals. So it's not that, but again, there's a couple of them out there that are still very uneducated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and maybe they don't like that risk because I know somebody,
Yeah.
he's an agent. He does really well. He does 90 deals a year.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really like doing flips or nothing. He just does all traditional. And a lot of his clients are investors, flippers. He understands the process,
Mhm.
understands how it all works. But he's like, why am I going to go spend 3, 4 months, risk $100,000 worth of my money to maybe make 30 grand when I could do 2 traditional deals and
Yep.
make 30 grand.
There you go. So that I think falls back into
Knowing who you are,
knowing who
knowing
you
what you
are,
wanna do
stay in
maybe.
your lane. Don't like go off doing other stuff. Like I have my flip business dialed. Like I'm not gonna go start a wholesaling company. Like it just it could make
That's
sense,
a
but it's
huge
not. It's like I'm staying in my lane. I'm a flipper. Have I assigned deals? Will I wholesale deals? Sure. If I'm flip have a deal under contract that I'm committed to, and
that you can't take on
one of my
or none of your
flippers needs
investors don't
something,
want them or whatever.
or they want the deal, and you're just like, hey, let me just help you out. Let me assign you my deal. I've done a couple of those, but I'm not like locking up deals to assign
That's
or
not your
doing
true that's not what you're doing every day just to
yeah.
do that.
So I'm in my lane, right? Whereas sometimes I look at it like, dude, for the other day, like I was talking to this wholesaler, dude, 130, 140K assignment, rip. It's, can you imagine that? And it's, dude, I would have to do what on average, probably 4 or 5 flips to reach that, and you're like,
Yeah.
but that's money risk, that's movement, that's delivering materials, that's coordinating subs, that's listing those properties, dealing with those buyers and those
Well,
agents.
that's why a
So
lot
it's
of
like
flippers end up going to
that's what
wholesaling.
I'm saying. So it's for me, it's is that attractive sometimes? Yeah. But I realized that, hey, I perfected my business and to start over and to go somewhere. And it's not like starting over because I have knowledge on it. I know the systems that a lot of these wholesalers use and could really put, but I'm not going to do that. I'm in my lane, right? So what you were saying about that agent, if he's doing 90 deals, dude, he's ripping it enough. He'll waste his time doing a flip because
Exactly.
he has the pipeline full with his clients. And that's where
I
his
think
bread and
that's
butter is,
huge though,
you
because
know?
everybody that's a flipper thinks you have to be a wholesaler.
Oh,
I know a
dude.
lot of people that are flippers and they're like, yeah, I want to get into this wholesaling because it's less work.
Yeah.
Or I already understand the game that I can make them out this much.
Or a lot of people when we write the talk on obviously social media, get into real estate, wholesaling.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that. I got right into flipping. I knew what wholesaling was, but that wasn't attracted to wholesaling, dude. Like
Do
I
you
wasn't
regret
attracted to
going
that.
into flipping?
No, dude.
Like, even though, yes, you're making a lot of money, sure, everyone will say, "Of course, he's not gonna regret it, he's making so much money." But legitimately, do you like the business?
I love the business, dude.
Okay.
Like it drives me. Like I truly like seeing a product turn it around, take that crappiest house in that neighborhood and make it the best one. Like even more recently, because I've been buying more bolder deals like hoarder houses and things like that. And recently on one of the houses I purchased, dude, like the neighbor, like the second I bought that house, there was like it was like hoarder house, just a bunch of like people that shouldn't have been there at the house, and
Okay.
I basically closed on it. And I go there in the morning, and they're like still there rummaging. They're supposed to be moved out. They were supposed to be gone because the mom sold the house, and then the daughters and the boyfriend kind of overstayed.
Okay,
They were
okay.
rummaging. I was like, "Get out of here! Get out of here!" And they left. And then the neighbor came out and he's just saying, like, Judas, bro, and he starts crying. He's just like, man, he's like, I had to deal with these people. He's like, I have young kids. He's like, I have 2 young kids. He's like, I don't even feel safe like them coming outside and like being over here in like the yard because I don't know what they're up to. They're like doing some just illegal stuff there, just no good like things that aren't good. And he came out, he was tearing. He's like, thank you so much for what you're doing. He's like, thank you
Wow.
so much for getting him out of there. He's like, thank you. And then plus, they also like it because then what do? You fully renovate it, you
You
sell it for
raise their
top dollar, and
value.
you raise all of their values. But almost every community that I sell a flip in, the second I sell that flip, next week or 2 weeks later, there's 1 or 2 listings that pop up. Because people follow, they look in the neighborhood, oh my God, I didn't know my property was
Was
worth
worth
that
that
much. And then they
much.
reach out to their agent, hey, come sell my house. I actually want to sell it and move now because
Yeah.
now I can actually sell it for a good amount because I set
Yeah.
comps or
If you
sold that
wanna
threshold.
even go and that's what I think is cool that a lot of people and that's something that you haven't even got into yet.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, when you dive fully, truly into one thing, you then realize, oh, there's another way for me to make some money still doing my one thing. If you wanted to,
Yeah.
you could have your cold callers cold that entire neighborhood after you sell your property
Yep.
to say, hey, me and my team just fix and flipped this house and sold it for this much. Have you ever thought about selling?
Yep. That's a
And you
good
could get
tactic.
the 1 or 2 listings from just the flips that you did.
100%.
And you
Like
would
farm
probably
those whole
yeah,
communities
you
and
would double your business
yep.
just on the traditional side. And I hit on that because a lot of people think I'm going to start a cleaning company. I just have to do cleaning. If I'm just going to start a flipping company, I just have to do flipping. And yes, perfect it first. And then those little extra side incomes will come
As a breeze, yep. Yep,
Easy.
yep, I agree with that 100%. I like that idea, actually. I've thought about that. I've just never thought about I've thought about, "Oh, let me skip Tracy's and cold call myself." I'm just so busy, I never get around to it,
Yeah, and
But
why would you? Like
yeah,
you said, the guy that's doing 90 deals a year, why is he gonna go do a flip?
yep,
Doesn't make sense for him to do it. He could just get 3 more listings and make the same amount of money with less risk.
exactly,
And same for you. Why would you spend your time cold calling people when you have deals coming your way no matter what?
exactly.
But reverse it and say, "Hey, I already me and my team already did this property, fix and flip this one in this neighborhood, and have a couple VAs call for you and say, just line them up for you." So that way every morning all you have to do is say, "Hey, my team called you, heard maybe you were interested in listing. Yes, we just did this deal. Here's the numbers,
It's
etc."
true. Makes it a lot easier for
It's easier
people.
for you.
Yep,
And now it's better for return value on your time and your
yep,
so brother, I appreciate you hopping on this
of course.
again, taking some time out of your day. You answered my question of do you regret it? And you said no. You actually really love the business and not just because of the money, but you love it and you love the systems. My last question to you is a couple questions. One, where does Edwin see himself going from here? Is your end goal to be a top flipper? And then 3, what is your exit strategy? Because usually the people that go to flipping, they end up now going to developing. I know
Okay,
that's what Lenny's doing. I
yep.
just had a sold a piece of land right next to Lenny, right next to his development. And yeah, what's Edwin's goal? What's his vision for the future?
Yeah, so I'm gonna always have a flip business.
Okay.
Like always, that'll always be something that's operational, especially with what I'm creating this year with bringing on like a project manager and different kind of things and
Okay.
someone who oversees more of it,
To
like the
remove
construction.
yourself from
Yeah,
it a little bit
to
more?
slowly remove myself from the
Okay.
construction side a little bit and just focus more on just investing and
Locking up the deal, buying the deal.
uh,
Hey, project manager, get this one going.
boom, exactly.
Okay.
And then yeah, just keep saving up my money, get into development eventually, buy there some plots and do some multis or just buy, a strip and build just some track homes. That's where I want to be. When I'll get there, I don't know. When I'll first be bold enough to pull the first trigger on a development deal, because I think you'll feel like exactly how it felt when I first flipped, like a big unknown and a big risk. So getting back into that feeling and jumping back into that feeling, you've already had like
Scary.
a perfected business going and you don't really need more, but you're
Yeah.
just like, you desire it, right? You just desire getting to develop. So yeah, I think would be to get into that. And then yeah, just that, man, just slowly keep buying rentals, build up the passive. I think we all want to get there,
Of
right? To
course,
where
yeah.
we just can make 20, 30 grand a month off of some passive and just know like our overheads covered and things
Yeah.
like
Are
that
you
and not
take
have to.
I know I said the last couple questions, but sparked a question real quick. Are you these ones that you're flipping, are you keeping some of them ever? Or just your
Right.
main goal is
It's
just to
tough
keep
to
flipping?
yeah, right now the flip is they're lucrative with what I'm doing, so that's what I wanna
Flip
keep
it.
the pipeline
Okay.
going, and right at this moment, I would only buy a deal to keep if it's a creative deal. If I can take
Okay.
over, like, someone's loan, if I can do some
Seller
seller
carry.
finance,
Okay.
uh, I know a lot of people are doing even, like, those VA assumables recently because you can get a VA assumable loan and not be a veteran, and you can buy it non-owner occupied, so a lot of people are so I would say that's the only thing
If you're
or
gonna get one,
yeah,
that's gonna be the route,
yeah.
but your main focus is still the flips.
Yeah,
Got it.
flips
Okay.
or even just have enough like liquidity to you can cash them out. I mean, ultimately you cash out. I'm just thinking like the ROIs still make sense for some of these townhomes or something if you pay cash for all of them and where you can rent them for. So things like that, I know it would eat up a lot, but I think that's like where I would want to be. Like I want to be at a point where my rentals are all paid off. I'm not going to pay them off like early with those low mortgages, but that would be ideal. Like everything paid off and just it'll increase your cash flow and then
Take some chips off the
yeah,
table.
and then it'll decrease like the overhead, right? Because at the end of the day, you still have those mortgages that if they're not
Yeah.
rented, you still
You
have
gotta
to
pay it.
you got to pay it,
Any maintenance,
you
things
know.
like that.
But
Okay.
yeah, man, I would say overall, like anyone can really get into it, dude. Like I don't come from a big background of like money or anything like that, dude. I'm just a hard worker that just
Saved their dough
took
and kept their expenses
yeah, and
low
just took the
and took a
risk.
risk.
Yeah, just took the risk that I think a lot of people would not have been willing to take with how comfortable I was at the time. I didn't need to like take that risk, right? I just was burnt out. I didn't want to be in corporate America, which is where I thought I was going to be and work up the ladder. So it's all came full circle, man. Like it all like recently tapped into just man, like I would never like even to this day, like understanding the functions of a business. If you put me and you're like, "Hey, Edwin, start this business," like it would be 100 times easier now doing it than what it would have been. Just because you
Yeah.
understand the process, you understand marketing different, you understand like what it takes to have a successful business. You know
Yeah.
what I
No,
mean?
that makes
So,
sense. And again, we're gonna wrap up this show, but the last thing I want to point out from that I noticed from the start to the end of the show right now is you didn't know where your end goal was going to be or where you're at today, and this is just something that God does is he prepares you. And right now, for everybody that's listening, if you think you're in a season where it's I don't want to do this or this isn't what I'm meant to be doing, learn everything you can from where you currently are. You
yep,
started fixing and flipping phones, and now your end goal is fix and flipping houses.
yep,
Same process. You went to school to manage a business, you end up managing your own business,
yeah,
managing people, and now it went from a $40 flip to $40,000
yep.
flip. It's just another zero. A
Just
few
three more zeros. Same
same
process though.
process,
Yep,
things are going, and that's something I want really to key in on because people think that this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing or whatever. Learn everything from this moment where you're at currently today may not be where you're supposed to be, but it's leading you to where you should be.
exactly.
So again, brother, I appreciate you coming out on the
Of
show,
course.
sharing so much knowledge. Go ahead and let everyone know where they could find you and if they want to get deals from you, if they want to get their first flip, if they want you to list their house, analyze a deal, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, definitely. You guys can find me on Instagram, Edwin underscore Mark. I believe that's what it is. I think it's or Edwin dot Mark or something like that. But 623-399-7554 is my phone number. You guys can reach out to me anytime. I'm always there willing to help. Like for me, it's truly means a lot when clients trust me for things. And that's what I do this business for, dude. I lead with the heart and ultimately falls back in just to the Christian background and just keeping good faith with everything. So
Cool. I appreciate it, brother. Again, thank you guys for listening. I hope you got some knowledge from Edwin today. There was a lot of valuable points. Go back, listen, re listen if you need to. Again, Edwin, thank you for coming out.
thank you, bro.
I
I really
appreciate it.
appreciate it, man.